read this book, and I like this book. This book is so good. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is such a good book. I love this book. I highly recommend it if you have not read it for whatever reason. If you like Rainbow Rowell, you'll like this book. It's Rainbow Rowell meets Harry Potter, but it's not like a Harry Potter ripoff or anything. It's completely like is able to stand on its own. I love this book. It's been a while since I found a book that I was unable to put down, and I was always anxious to get back to it, and just like, you know, just being able to like hold it, I was like, it was like, I was just anxious, like I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I was constantly like, what happens next? What happens next? What happens next? And so good. Oh my gosh. Highly recommend it. Quick pitch. It is it is like, so this book is based on a Harry Potter version of Harry Potter in the series Fangirl. Well, it's a single book. In the standalone Fangirl, the main character Kath writes a book, fan fiction on a series she really likes, which is their version of Harry Potter, Simon Snow. And this is that book, although Rainbow Rowell, she later explained in like the book that this is her take on how she would write fan fiction for that series that she made up. But then again, it has Kat's title for her fan fiction, so it's almost like Kat's fan fiction. So I don't really know what to say about that. You do not have to read this book to read this book, and you don't have to read this book to read this book. You can read them both separately, although I highly recommend this book. This book was great. I really enjoyed this book. You can see Maz and Simon right on the cover right there. She's thinking about them. This is a really great book, and it stands by itself in its own merit. This is a great book also. So like, it's fantasy, high fantasy. There is romance, a lot of romance. The romance is gay for those who are on the fence about it. If you do know anything about this book, you should already know that. Yeah. Anyways, I'm not talking about that. I enjoyed the book anyway. I was kind of nervous picking up this book. It isn't the first book I've read about a same-sex couple. I read A Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. I think it's what it's called. Yeah, I read that book. So this wasn't my first time, but I like this book so much better, and it's so good. I highly recommend it to anyone who has not read it yet. I feel like that's the only thing I could say about this book, is just read it. It is better if you have already read the Harry Potter series, just because there are a lot of Harry Potter parallels that I was able to pick up on this book, and it just makes the book better if you already have and know about Harry Potter. But yeah, you don't really have to read Harry Potter, but you can still enjoy this book on itself. It's high fantasy. I just love the cover. Like, there's Baz and Simon on the cover, and so pretty, so pretty. And the sun, and in it has like stars. You were the sun, and it was crashing into you. Oh my gosh, so sweet. And it has the little map. Oh, that's so cute. Of Watford. That's the magical school that Simon goes to. It's so pretty. I love it. I love it. It had little pictures in it. There's one. Found one. I just skipped it. Bam. In it, but I preferred this, but the pictures were nice, and parts. This is when this picture is actually when Baz makes his entrance, which might be a spoiler. Anyway, I'm gonna move on from, I feel like that's all I can really say in the non-spoilers section, because I just dying to talk about these characters. I'm doing everything in my power not to like run and jump in my car and get Wayward Son right now, because I'm just such a good book. this book. Highly recommend it. I wasn't able to put it down. It's been a while since I've had a book like this. It was so nice to finally get one like this. So highly recommend it. I just love how this fits my hand. It looks big, but it goes by fast. It goes by so fast. I finished this in like 3 days, which sounds like a long time. Well, actually not. It's a long time for me with the book I love as much as this book. I was constantly doing stuff and being dragged away from it, which sucks, and I loved it. Anyways, I'm gonna move on to spoilers. So if you care and if I actually have an audience watching this video, but bye, I'm going to start talking about spoilers. Okay. Right? Spoilers. Okay, moving on. What should I first talk about? Oh, the beginning of the book. The beginning of the book. Oh my gosh, I was getting strong Harry Potter vibes. Like, not strong, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a Harry Potter ripoff. But like, you know, like Simon going to school, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Harry Potter going to school the same way. And Simon is not Simon is like this book's equivalent of Harry Potter. They have parallels, but they're not exactly the same, and I did appreciate that. But yeah, going there, they both like grew up in rough households, and I was like, oh my gosh. And on the train there, Simon was making a list of all the things he missed, and I was like, which was really, really nice, because one, I was like, oh my gosh, Harry Potter vibes, even though I don't think Harry did that. But also, it was like slowly introducing us to the world of things he liked. Cherry scones. Everyone is obsessed with cherry scones in this novel, especially Simon. Simon has a thing for food. But yeah, I quickly noticed that, like, you know, there was other points of view in the book, and I was first like, I don't know. I'm always kind of iffy with different points of view, because I've read a few books where all the points of view are like the same. Like, you can't tell any difference from it, and I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that. But this, it was still great. I really did appreciate it. Everything in Baz's point of view. Oh my gosh, I love Baz. He was a trip. I mean, everything he said was snarky and funny, and I loved it. He was just so fun in every scene. Like, he immediately lifted every scene he was in. He was just so fun. And yeah, so all of part 1, you were just like hearing about Baz, all the characters, he's affecting the plot, even though he's not in the plot, he's not there, and we're just waiting for him to show up. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was so ready. I was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna be such a great character. He was obviously Harry Potter's equivalent of Draco Malfoy. That's what I kept on thinking of. I'm like, oh my gosh. Simon's obsessed with him the same way Harry was. And I don't even know if she meant to do this, but there was a theory going around that Draco Malfoy was a werewolf, and then J.K. Rowling was like, no, he's not a werewolf, he's actually a Death Eater, and I hated that because I really wanted Draco to be a werewolf. But in this book, Baz is actually a vampire, and I was like, I really, 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 really wish that Draco was a confirmed werewolf, but I liked that he was a vampire. I was like, Twilight, but it wasn't. There was, like, Simon waiting for Baz. It was kind of, did remind me of Bella whenever Edward would not show up to school, and then it had the same, like, and he didn't show up the next day, and he didn't show up 2 weeks after that, and, you know, that would happen in Twilight, and I was like, oh my gosh. But anyways, yeah, one character I'm going to talk about is Agatha. Agatha was introduced to us as Simon's girlfriend, and I was like, I've read this book, I know what happens, and he has a girlfriend, okay. And I didn't like her through most of the book. I hated being in her point of view every single time, just because she would do literally nothing but cause problems for the main characters and the plot. And I'm like, I don't like this character, can she just leave? And it's funny because whenever she finally left, I actually liked her. At the end, she was like running around, and she was like freaking out, and she was telling like the mage, and I was like so mad. I'm like, just turn around, you're causing enough problems. And she left, and that last chapter with her, I just like having this in my hand. That last chapter with her, I was like, okay, I like this character, and I kind of pity her now because she went to California because she wanted to meet Lucy. She wanted to be like Lucy. She wanted to escape the same way that Lucy did. She wanted to break free of the responsibility and pressure she felt, and now Lucy. I'm pretty sure Lucy's death was unclear in this book, but I'm pretty sure that she died giving birth to Simon, or like the mage killed her shortly afterwards. I'm pretty sure that's what happened, and she's not gonna meet Lucy. We all know it. Lucy's not alive. Lucy is dead, and she's not gonna meet Lucy. And that kind of hurt, realizing that as she's in California, she named her dog Lucy. I thought that was a great touch, and that chapter made me like Annabeth. Did I just literally call her Annabeth? Agatha. I've been reading The Trials of Apollo while I was reading this, so I was reading them both at the same time, so I'm like a little bit confused. Anyways, moving on. Yeah, I wanted to say that I was like, oh, she's Simon's girlfriend, therefore she must be that book's equivalent of Ginny. But no, she was not Ginny. Ginny is completely different. She's not a Ginny equivalent, that's for sure. Penelope was obviously the Hermione equivalent. She was smart, and she was one of Simon's friends, and yeah, one of the side characters. And I was kind of on the fence of liking her or not. I decided to like her in the end. She was just like so. Yeah, I liked her in the end. Although she did kind of have like a few Ron vibes because she had that huge family that all have like little power, and did she not have a lot of money? It's not really said, so I'm guessing not middle class. But they talked about like having a herd, swarms of Bruces, Bunces. I don't even know how to pronounce her name. I don't know how to pronounce most names, so that's a trip that you guys might have to stick with me. The mage. Let's talk about the mage. They have said, am a Harry Potter fan, so I was like, when the mage was introduced, I was like, oh my gosh, it's the equivalent of Dumbledore, obviously. And then we find out that he's been taxing the magical families, and you're like, that's not the best thing. And then you find out that he's been raiding their homes, and you're like, but he's Dumbledore. He's like this book equivalent of Dumbledore. Like, he can't be wrong or bad because he's this book equivalent of Dumbledore. And I was in denial for a long time. So, but like, I was realizing like what he's doing is bad. Like, he did a lot of good things. He opened up Watford for everyone. Like, if you had an ounce of magic, you were in the school. And that's something that the witches and wizards didn't do previously, which you like and you appreciate. But at the same time, he was very like, the ends justify the means. In order to have the room to do that, he was taxing heavily the old families, and he was raiding their homes, trying to find a way to save the world from the humdrum. And that is a stupid name. I'm glad that she acknowledged it in the book. But I got used to it after a while. And I was like, oh my gosh, the humdrum is Voldemort, even though he didn't have any armies. And I was like, oh my gosh, every time. And then like later I was like, oh my gosh, every time Simon uses his power, he's sucking it out of a different place. That's what I thought when they were trying to explain the concept that Simon is the humdrum. But then the humdrum is Simon's shadow and anti-him, which I guess makes sense. I don't know. The humdrum was great, though. I think the humdrum was great. Simon ended up with a tail and wings. don't really like that. I think it would have been more effective if he was completely stripped of everything magical. But at the same time, I really thought that he was just gonna have normal powers because he had two very strong magical parents, and that was like relevant when he was having the final in the climax that he had two strong magical parents. So I thought that that he would just have normal magic powers, but no, he was stripped of all of it except for his tail and wings, which is a little weird, but Baz does seem to be into it, so I guess they're gonna stay, and they're on the cover of Wayward Son, so I guess they're staying. I don't really like those. Oh my gosh, every scene with Baz and Simon made my day. I was like trying not to freak out every time I read it. Like, people were like looking at me because I was constantly crammed with people because I was constantly busy trying to find little pockets of time to read this book. Constantly busy trying to find pockets of time to read this book, and every time I just couldn't help it. Sometimes I just like squeal or yell or whatever, and everyone would like look at me like, "Oh, are you okay?" I'm like, "It's just my characters being cute." Oh my gosh, they're so cute. I died. Oh my gosh, that night after the vampires, oh my gosh, I was dying the entire time. I was hesitant to read this book because my family is very anti-gay, and I don't think I am anymore, and it's kind of a hard subject in my family, and I was like, I don't want to read this book, and if my parents found out that the love interest in the end wasn't Agatha, they would probably be like, because of course I talked about this book with them. I talk about all my books. They would be suspicious if I didn't talk about this book, especially when I was constantly reading it like I was and freaking out where I was reading it. So of course I talked to them about it, and I skirted around it, but my parents were kind of, yeah. And I was kind of hesitant to read that book for that reason, because I was like, I don't know if I would be comfortable with it, just because I've been trained all my life not to be comfortable with it, and I'm kind of ish not still. But it was great. It was still great. They work so well together, Baz and Simon. They just work so well, and I love Baz and I love Simon. I love that Simon is just like a puppy dog. He's a puppy dog. He's the cutest thing, and I love that Baz is like so like he always is like he's kind of hard. It's hard for him to like show his emotions, even though he's like so into Simon, and it would just be like, just because we sucked once doesn't mean we're like more than friends. And then Simon would be like, well, we snuck twice. It's just so cute. They were just so cute. They were adorable. Oh my gosh. And then when Simon left that morning to go with Penelope and Agatha, I was like, don't leave. This happens all the time in the books. The character leaves after this wonderful night, and then it's complicated the next day. But no, he jumped out of the car and he came back, and then they had that conversation like, I'm a terrible boyfriend, and I love this book. I love this book, okay? I love this book. Yeah. Oh, Ebb. I need to talk about Ebb. That was such a sad part of the book. She came on into the book, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the book version of Hagrid, and I wasn't the hugest Hagrid fan. He wasn't my favorite character, but I appreciated him. I liked him. And whenever Simon visited Ebb, I got Hagrid vibes every time, how Harry would visit Hagrid, and I just I felt that, and I was like, she was kind of like Eeyore, and I was like, okay, this is a random character. But in the end, when the mage was trying to kill her, and Agatha was being useless and running around, and then she came back to save Agatha, and the mage was like, you're not a fighter, and she's like, yeah, I'm not a fighter. And he's like, I'm doing it for the greater good, as he's completely insane, and Ebb is like, yeah, I guess, and she just died, and it was so depressing. And then Simon runs up there, and he thinks he thinks that the mage is trying to heal her, but he's not, uh, and then he's singing, and the mage is singing Queen, and he's like, carry on, and I was like, that hurt. That was hard to read. That hurt. I wasn't expecting that, and Nico, he was waiting for her outside, and he walked inside, and he found out that she was arrested, and Nico was like, Baz, take me with you, and Baz didn't take him with him, and his sister died, and that hurt. That hurt. I did like the scene of going into the vampire den, though. I thought that was really great, with Baz being all cool, and Simon just can't get over that fact, and kind of get to see like what an alternative life for what Baz would be like if he was outcast. He was outcasted by society and was able to go to Watford, and he was disowned from his family. You kind of get to see. I felt that's what, whenever he looked at Nico, that's kind of what he saw. Someone that was thrown away from society. Sure, Nico chose that lifestyle, and Baz didn't, but still. Yeah. And then Baz had that scene in the epilogue where he was saying to his mom that he wasn't sorry anymore because he was living a good life, and he's gonna carry on with what he's doing. You know, it's just like, oh my gosh, yeah. Lucy was great. I figured out that the mage was Davy really quick, actually. I figured that out pretty soon. I was like, who's Davy? And then it was just like, it made one mention. I was like, wait, is it the mage? And then it was like, he wanted to bring in all these people to the school, and I'm like, it's the mage. And that was great. I think I get why we had Lucy, but sometimes I was like, why do we have Lucy? Because no one's being able to listen to her. She's just this voice that, you kind of almost forget that literally the audience knows that Lucy is there, but it does kind of help Agatha's arc as she goes to California, and it did help me like Agatha more and sympathize with her. That's such a weird name to give a love interest. Well, she wasn't a love interest, but she was really pretty, and she was originally Simon's girlfriend, Agatha. That's usually a very ugly name, but she made it work somehow. I don't know how. I did love all the mentions to the adventures that they would go on in the past, like hunting moonstones in the middle of the night on Christmas, and like Harry Potter, Harry Potter, Harry Potter, Harry Potter, Harry Potter, and Penelope just possessed a dog. I was like, what's going on? I don't know why I found that funny. This made me a little sad that this picture of Simon right here doesn't have the moles on his face, and that Baz left, and I was like, oh well. But this was a great book. It was a really, really, really great book. Did not like the wings and tail. No, I don't like the wings and tail. The epilogue was great. I loved the epilogue. Everything I felt that was tied up so neatly in this book. I have no idea what Wayward Son is going to be. I saw like the cover of the paperback, and it looks like they're on a road trip. So I'm assuming they go to California to talk to Agatha. I don't want more Agatha, but I do want some more Simon and Baz. Even though I don't know if they have any more to do, I love them, and such a great book. I could gush about this for hours. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with this book, and I'm doing everything I can not to just like hop out and drive to Barnes & Noble and get Wayward Son right now. Because I ordered it off of Amazon, and it should be here in like a few more days, but I'm dying. This is such a great book series. I mean book. It's gonna sound series, but I highly recommend it. It was great. Do I have anything else I need to say? The dragon scene was... Oh, the spells. The spells. The spells. Yes, I read the spells originally. I'm like, those are dumb. But then they explained it and how the spells are language, and as phrases and language changes, spells become more powerful or lose power. I thought that was cool. I think that's even cooler than the Latin that was used in Harry Potter. Like, I'm like, that doesn't sound cool. Like, what happened to Lumgardium Leviosa? Now it's just like, clean as a whistle. I'm like, that sounds dumb. Or Scooby Doo Doo, where are you? Like, that sounds dumb. But like, as the phrases repeat, they become more powerful, and they can lose power, and you have to have knowledge of it. And remember, like, Baz cast the spell as on Love's wings, and he's like, it only works if you understand the vowels change in a certain period in time, and if you're insanely in love, and it worked. And I'm like, I love things like that. And that wasn't in Harry Potter. It's just like, it's Latin. And I thought that was actually very, very, very clever. And I was not expecting that, because I read the stupid spells in here and I'm like, those are stupid. But she actually pulled it off, and it was great. So I'm going to sign up now because people are getting loud. Bye.